doldrums only continue. And a continuation from the Astros series in the fact that the Yankees just strand a whole boatload of base runners. They go 3 for 26 runners in scoring position in this three-game set, and they leave 29 runners left on base. They strike out 38 times. They go 0 for 8 with 2 sac flies with the bases loaded, and it all leads to them losing 2 of 3 in a series that we said, not that I thought it would happen, but you're honestly looking for a sweep. And so now you lose 2 series to the lowly 2023 Chicago White Sox. This is a bad White Sox team. Make no mistake. Their record now sits at 47-69. But the Yankees are no good. The Yankees are 59-56. They are now 5 out on the loss side of the Blue Jays for the final wild card spot. Hell, they even sit 4 back on the loss side of the Mariners, who are outside the playoffs. So you have, not including the Red Sox, who technically the Yankees are behind, but you have 2 teams that you gotta, go through. It's just, it becomes dimmer and dimmer by the day, by the series, and they suck you in for a split second, but not really. At some point, that isn't going to happen anymore, where it's even wins, and it's starting to feel that way as it is, where wins don't even feel like anything. It's okay, they're just going to lose tomorrow. And how many times have we seen in a 3-game series, specifically, game 1 loss, game 2 win, game 3 loss? That seems like that's happened quite a bit lately. And so I talked about a lot at the beginning of the season how the Yankees were winning rubber games. And it is crazy how the Yankees got to lead baseball in terms of just being in rubber games. In other words, the first 2 games of the Yankee series seem to be split. And what was helping early in let's say the first 2 months, specifically April, but really the first 2 months, is that they were winning that third game quite often. Now those tables have turned completely. And so now the Yankees are 1-7-3 in the last 11 series. That one series win against the Kansas City Royals, and their last series win before that stretch was against Oakland. So the last 2 series win are against Kansas City and Oakland, the 2 worst teams in baseball. The Yankees, when it's all said and done this year, might very well finish under 500, which would end that streak of them being over 500 in every season, starting with the 1993 season. And, according to Bob Clappish's report today, no surprise, Brian Cashman's going nowhere. And so that gives you a hopeless feeling. Aaron Boone very well might get fired. And look, that's all well and good. It's not going to change much. It's not going to change much. Sure, could it kind of rally the troops in year 1 of voting the managers? Yeah, you see that sometimes. I'm not sure if it's so much a thing in baseball. I know you see it a lot in hockey. Baseball, I'd have to think about. Maybe it does naturally, but I think that might be what happens if this continues. And even that's not a sure thing. What I came away with from that article is that it's more likely that things stay in place than things, get blown up. And that's Hal Steinbrenner, who might be the biggest problem of them all. I would say Cashman, but Hal's the one that's enabling this. So, for nothing to be done at the deadline is just malpractice. Either buy or sell. I personally would have sold. And I know there wasn't much to sell, but I think about someone, for example, like Gleyber Torres and some of these high leverage relievers. You could have gotten something decent back for them. And I know that is kind of waving the white flag for 2023. I would have been okay with that. And then you bring up prospects and you hope it goes well. Look, nothing will be like what it was for 2016, specifically Gary Sanchez, who, even though things blew up with that, he was special. And it made for just an enjoyable end of the season. Aaron Judge was a part of that, but he wasn't good. He just wasn't. Aaron Judge was, if we're being honest, he was bad in that 2016 last couple of months. But you had Sanchez. There were some other things going on there. And so, it was actually a very enjoyable end of that season. I'm not saying that would have happened here, but I want to see Everson Pereira be called up. I want to see Austin Wells be called up. Look, we might see Oswald Peraza. Now, let's get into housekeeping. Let's start with more recent things and work our way back. So, and I haven't even have I even brought up Luis Severino yet? I haven't even brought him up yet, which is fucking crazy. Because that motherfucker, love him for what he's done previous to this season. When all is said and done. But this season has been an absolute nightmare, and the Yankees keep on trotting him out there, even though he's been so bad. And I know that the Yankees are thin on bodies for starting pitching, but he simply cannot be out there anymore. I don't know how many times I have to say this. You're trying to win games, you don't pitch Luis Severino. It's a case closed situation. But getting back to some injury stuff, LeMahieu ends up being a late scratch for Game 3 with calf tightness. So that could be an IL situation. We'll see. I mean, that's just a guess on my part. I'm not going out on a limb here, but look, with Josh Donaldson, that was a IL situation, and he ended up being out for a while. They thought that it was going to be a minimum stay, and then he ended up being out for a couple of months. So, with DJ, it would almost be fitting for him to end up on the IL. It seems like that's just been destined to happen one way or another, so we'll see. We know very minimal information on that, so who knows? And so that could lead, if that does happen, I would think Oswald Peraza would get the call to take his spot. And then Carlos Rodón ended up going on the IL. Rodón, with that hamstring tightness, I think is what it was termed, ended up on the IL. He's hoping it's the minimum 15-day IL. I say leave him there as long as possible. He wasn't pitching well anyway. Let him recover. I mean, again, with him, it's a 6-year contract, so make sure he's right. Make sure he's right. And if we don't see him again this season, I'm fine with that. It's been a failed season. He's not going to turn it around at the last moment. It is what it is. Trying to think if there's anything else roster-wise. Nick Ramirez came back up. Loaiza got activated from the 60-day IL. No surprise, Johnny Brito was sent down at the end after the Astros series concluded, and the Yankees actually designated Davy Garcia for assignment. So talk about a situation where, in 2020 there was so much hope, and he actually was good in that weird season when there was no fans, 60-game season. He really was good down the stretch to the point where, him getting pulled for J-Happ in Game 2 against the Rays was highly criticized, and deservedly so, and he really fell off a cliff, and it's kind of funny, and it's not an indictment on anyone, but it's funny, at the time, Clark Schmidt was someone who, I think was recently coming off of Tommy John surgery, but Davey was kind of ascending quickly. Clark was a guy who was a first-round pick, and it took Clark Schmidt a few years to really, I guess I'd consider last year's first productive season, but even that was kind of a weird sort of back and forth from Scranton, more in the bullpen and then as a starter. And now we see he's really finally coming along, but it's just funny how, things change. I remember thinking, wow, in that, I guess they called it camp, summer camp. I forget what it was called, but, Davey looked better than Clark. And now here we are, David Garcia, total abomination, designated for assignment. I'm already talking way too much about that. Yankees, White Sox. Let's get into this series, unfortunately. This was a carryover from Game 1, the last game of the Astros series. So I'll say this one thing about the Yankees, and I don't mean to sound like Aaron Boone, is that they are now, they're drawing walks. They are getting more runners on base, it feels like, right? I'm not going to look it up, but I have to think that the Yankees on base percentage is probably better than it had been, in previous months, weeks, whatever you want to call it. It just seems like they are getting on base. And I say that lightly. But the inability to get runners home is just baffling. And the Yankees just can't get a big hit. I mean, sure, when the sample size is big enough, we'll talk about a big hit that, for example, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa got in Game 2. But the Yankees were 0 for 8 with 2 sac flies with the bases loaded. That's completely unacceptable. And just loads of strikeouts. Look, Laz Diaz is a big story of Game 1, I'll be honest. But it still falls on the Yankees to not get it done. But Laz Diaz was about as bad as you could possibly be. And I know Angel Hernandez wasn't good in Game 4 of the Astros series. Laz Diaz was worse. And with Angel Hernandez, some of the things went the Yankees' way. With Laz Diaz, it was very pro-White Sox. And Aaron Boone got ejected, and it was very comical. And he actually imitated Les Diaz. Boone's always been good at like the imitations, dating back to his time as a Sunday Night Baseball ESPN announcer with the batting stance imitations. But he was really good on this. Yeah, with Les Diaz. And look, I don't blame Boone for getting ejected. It's kind of interesting when he did get ejected was when Volpe struck out looking, which that was actually a strike. So if it were me, I would have gotten ejected after the DJ LeMahieu strikeout. I think that was in the 7th inning, 6th or 7th. I think it was the 7th. But either way, Garrett Cole on the mound, and Garrett Cole, this game just sucked. I mean, game 3 sucked also, but game 1 sucked. That Garrett Cole, at least he should have ended up giving up like 2 runs in 7 innings, but unfortunately, like Tommy Kahnle comes on and kind of fucks that up too. So everything kind of went wrong. So Garrett Cole, who was leading the American League in ERA, is now in second at a 2.75 ERA, and I think he might have had a streak going. He hadn't allowed more than in terms of the 4 runs he allowed, was like the most he had allowed, I think, since the game that Rizzo got hurt versus the Padres at the end of May. So he had a streak going. And he makes one mistake in the second inning to Andrew Vaughn. That was it. I mean, look, like that's what it was. And for Cole, he was pretty pitch efficient to get through 7 of the pitch into the 8th. But the Yankee offense just could not get it done. Dylan Cease had 7 walks in 5 1/3 innings and no runs. 7 walks. And I understand that Dylan Cease is a guy, like last year, I think he finished second in the Cy Young. This year, it's been a struggle for him. Like, you got to cash in. You got to cash in. So this game was just ridiculous. The Yankees went 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position and 13 men left on base. Like, that is just crazy talk. But that's what happened. Lineup-wise, things have kind of been the same. And look, it's Judge, I guess, is getting better. He ended up playing all 3 games of the series and was in right field for 2 of them. So it seems as if Judge is, there's some normalcy there. He certainly did better in this series. And again, I think a lot of it is the Astros have his number. He put up some good stats in this series. But the lineup has generally been what it's been. Higgy and Wartford, that's a straight platoon. That's a straight up platoon between the 2 of them. Just because Trevino's out, Warford's basically picking up that same amount of playing time for better or worse. And then, like I said, LeMahieu ends up kind of getting hurt here. But other than that, like, it's pretty much the same. What'll be interesting is the Yankees finally face a left-handed starter in Luzardo from the Marlins. We'll preview that. And so that could, we might see a little bit of a different lineup there. So game 1. Let's finally jump in. The White Sox jump out to an early lead. After the 2nd inning, the Yankees get bases loaded. McKinney walk, LeMahieu walk, Bader walk, and then Volpe, trying to do a little bit too much. I think this was a situation where he tried to pull an outside pitch, flies out to shallow left. Then Rortvedt flies out to shallow left, and then Bowers grounds out to the pitcher. On a nice play by Cease. We'll talk about Bowers getting robbed a couple times. This time, I don't feel bad for Bowers, because he didn't hit it well, but Cease did make a nice play on it, and so it remains tied. And then in the 2nd inning, after a walk to Moncada with 1 out, Andrew Vaughn homers, his 15th homer of the year, gives the White Sox a 2-0 lead. In the 3rd, you get a 1st and 2nd 2-out spot where LeMahieu grounds out to the pitcher. And again, just keep in mind, I won't be specific about it, but, Les Diaz was awful, like, throughout. So I'm probably only going to bring it up a couple of times specifically, but he was just legit bad at every turn you could possibly think of. Even going back, I think, to that Volpe. Let me see. That Volpe at bat in the 2nd inning I spoke of. Yeah, first pitch, called a strike, ball. After he had walked 3 straight. So, just fucking despicable by Les Diaz, who we know is bad. That's the thing. We know Les Diaz sucks. We know C.B. Buckner sucks. We know Angel Hernandez sucks. Like, that's what's frustrating about this. And look, the Yankees are still the one to blame, but man, was that frustrating. Let's go to the 6th inning. In the 6th, Brent Honeywell replaces Cease after a 1-out LeMahieu single. Bader then singles when Honeywell comes in. Then Volpe singles, but unfortunately, LeMahieu, and that's LeMahieu's lack of speed. On the Bader single, you wish he went from 1st to 3rd. He doesn't. And so then on the Volpe single, he would have scored. So stationary base-to-base stuff. The Yankees need more athleticism and speed. That's an example right there. Connor Falefa pinch hits for Warford. And even though Connor Falefa has been generally good, just compared to the rest of the team and expectation, he fucks up. Falefa flies out to shallow right, and with the bases loaded, one out, they strand that right there. And then Bowers grounds out, and great play by Andrew Vaughn down the first baseline. Dives, makes the play, and they barely get Bowers out. Just, Vaughn was the player of this game. That's a huge missed opportunity for the Yankees, and so the score remains 2-0. In the 7th, Yankees get chances again. And they got a little bit lucky where Glaber, it should have been a double play, but it ends up being, it's ruled a single, which is, I guess that makes sense. I don't know. But either way, it ends up first and second. Then Stanton walks. So bases loaded, no out. Lane Ramsey comes on, who I think was making his second appearance of his career. I think that was Ramsey. This White Sox bullpen is a mess. Absolute mess. But it really didn't matter much. McKinney sac fly, which is considered productive. And not only that, but the runner advances. Glaber goes from second to third. So you're down one, first and third, one out, and LeMahieu strikes out looking. But it wasn't his fault. It was not his fault. The first pitch was way outside, and the third pitch was as well. And so that was probably the worst of them all in terms of Diaz was concerned. And then Bader strikes out swinging. And so it remains 2-1. In the 8th, Brian Shaw comes on. This is the inning where Boone gets ejected after Volpe strikes out. Shaw strikes out the side, which was pretty fucked up considering Brian Shaw doesn't get strikeouts. He's a veteran guy that does not really have strikeout stuff. And then the bottom of the 8th, Cole, they leave him in, which I agreed with, and he gives up a couple of singles, Sheets and Andrews. And so Canely comes on, and he messes up defensively as Remillard bunts. And that was an obvious situation that he would bunt, and Canely bobbles it. So what should have been second and third, one out, ends up being bases loaded, no out. And Andrew Benintendi, the former Yankee, easily gets the sac fly, makes it 3-1. And then the dagger is delivered by Luis Robert, a 2-run double, makes it 5-1. And in the 9th inning, the Yankees go down. Brian Shaw picks up the 2-inning save, and a very, very disappointing loss for the Yanks sets this series up in the wrong way. But game 2, it's the winner. I'm calling him the winner lately, Clark Schmidt, who went from really getting no run support for a while to seemingly getting a good amount. Clark Schmidt now improves to 8-6 on the season, I believe. 8-6. It's just been a good stretch for him. And look, but with that said, he doesn't go deep in games. And so for what Clark's doing, ideally that's more of like a middle to back end of the rotation type of stuff. Maybe that's not fit, like, because he's putting up good numbers, but you need that length. And so right now, he's really your number 2. Currently speaking, like I can't put Nestor there. We'll talk about Nestor when we preview the Marlins series, but like Clark is your number 2 starter right now. And as good as the production is, like I said, him going 6 innings is kind of a chore. And him going 7 is just almost an impossibility. With that all being said, Clark is one of the few bright spots, right? You know, like I guess it's different, but we kind of talk about Falefa being like one of those kind of like I'll use it again, bright spots on the hitting spectrum. Clark is certainly that pitching-wise, you know. And let's think about this for a quick second. This is how deeply in shambles the Yankees rotation is. So it was supposed to be Cole, who's been tremendous. Then Rodón, utter failure in every way you want to look at this year. Then Nestor, which has been bad, right? I mean, Nestor, when healthy, had not been great, and then was hurt for a while. So for Nestor, as much as I love him, bad. Severino, complete nightmare. Frankie Montas has not even pitched at all this season. That was supposed to be your 5-man rotation. So then what ended up happening was, then you had Domingo Germán and Clark Schmidt. Now, the Domingo Germán story has all ups and downs to it, but like at least when he was not, you know, drunk in the locker, in the clubhouse, you know, there were some good moments. He had a perfect game, whatever. And then Clark Schmidt. So like Germán and Schmidt were like 6 and 7, and now Schmidt's like your 2. So just to give some perspective, this starting rotation has been an absolute nightmare other than Garrett Cole. It's just no way around it. You know, the one strength, and there were some hiccups, is the bullpen's like depth. I'm not talking about the Abreu's and the Ramirez's, but like they kind of go like 4, 5, 6 deep. And that is the one redeeming part of this team. You know, besides obviously what Judge was doing when healthy, and you know, we could talk about Glaber, you know, having a nice season, but yeah, it's just been really bad. Anyway, Clark Schmidt versus Touki Toussaint. The Yankees eventually break through, but the funny thing is the Yankees struck out 17 times this game, and it's such a crazy stat. The White Sox are like 0-11 or like 0-14. It's either 0-11 or 0-14. No, I think it's 0-11. 0-11 this season when they record 14 or more strikeouts as a pitching staff. That is nuts. I don't think any other team is under 500 when that happens. Like craziness. And yet the Yankees are 2-4 versus this fucking White Sox team this season. Just disgraceful. Absolutely fucking disgraceful. So in this game, LeMahieu was out, but I think this was a scheduled day off. I guess we'll never know, but I think this was actually just a regular off day for DJ. So yeah. Yanks in this one, Clark did a nice job of, throwing up zeros when the Yankees couldn't break through. We won't talk about the times they couldn't break through. We'll talk about when they do. Be a little positive on this one. With one out, Stanton singles, then McKinney singles, and then kind of left for a 2-run double. He seems to have some of this team's bigger hits this year. And then Harrison Bader with an RBI single. Again, Bader for what he is. And I think there's a big debate to be had there as far as, what does that contract look like for Harrison Bader moving forward? I'd like him back as a center fielder, but it depends what the deal is. Again, he's very injury prone, but for Bader, he is clutch. And I've always wanted someone like that. Like Bader, while far from perfect, really, truly, he is. There are flaws to his game, but, he comes through with an RBI single, makes it 3-0, and then eventually you get a sac fly for Jake Bauers with the bases loaded. So the 2 sac flies were the McKinney one in game 1, and then Bauers in game 2. Then in the 4th, Luis Robert hits his 31st homer of the year, makes it 4-1, but Schmidt didn't let that deter him. And then, Toussaint goes 5 innings. They bring on a reliever. In the 6th, a little bit of trouble for Schmidt. They take him out. Michael King does a really nice job. Michael King comes on, and they really pitch King a lot. King ends up going 2 2/3 innings, throws 35 pitches. So, at Schmidt's final line, 5 1/3, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. So a really nice looking line for Clark Schmidt. For King, awesome. 2 2/3, 2 hits, no earned runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts. But it's unfortunate because King would have been so useful for tonight's game 3. And I guess it was unavoidable. And look, the Yankees were up 4-1. You just wish that, I don't know. Again, that's where you need Clark to give you more length. It's just too bad that King simply was not going to be available in game 3. But either way, King was very good. And in this role has at times put up really just gaudy outings. He hasn't always been consistent, but I think back to that one versus the Cardinals when he was in sort of a bulk spot. And this one was just great. So he keeps that Yankee lead at 4-1. And then eventually, Kyle Higashioka as a pinch hitter hits a 2-run homer. His 7th homer of the year makes it 6-1. And then Aaron Judge homers. His 21st homer of the year makes it 7-1 Yankees. We go to the 9th, and Jonathan Loaisiga makes a season debut and looks good. Loaisiga 1-2-3 inning, including a strikeout. So good to see Loaisiga back again. That bullpen is looking stronger and stronger. From Clay, from Clay to Canely to King to Loaisiga to Peralta to Middleton to Hamilton. That's 7 guys right there. No order to that, but there is that. There is that. And yet still, the Nick Ramirez's and Albert Abreu's of the world seem to be in way too much in semi-big spots. But that's here nor there. Game 3. Ian Hamilton ends up being the opener. And I wish he had, it's crazy that he only went 1 inning. It's crazy that he only went 1 inning. So Mike Clevenger on the mound for the White Sox, and he gave the Yankees problems. He goes 6 innings, gives up 1 run, 3 hits, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. A nice outing for Clevenger. The Yankees really, Hamilton should have started the 2nd inning. And I know Boone said, we didn't want Severino to come in the middle of the inning. You didn't have to do that. If Hamilton got in trouble in the 2nd inning, okay, you bring in a reliever. As much as I don't love it, that's where you bring in Albert Abreu or Nick Ramirez. Again, am I in love with that situation? But if you're so dead set on not having Sevy pitch in the middle of an inning, I understand that. It doesn't, you still have Hamilton go as long as he can. And they say, we might need Hamilton on Friday, which I know is true. But come on, man. He only threw 10 pitches. You really want to avoid Severino as much as you possibly can. So you waste Hamilton for 1 inning. Is that what you really want? Again, that's just faulty. That's just fucking faulty. I can't defend that. That's just wrong. So Hamilton, of course, pitches a nice first inning. And his ERA, and I know bullpen ERA is misleading, 1.63. 47 strikeouts in 38 and 2/3 inning. A really nice find in Ian Hamilton. He's really, I mean, and this is like the 5th or 6th guy out of the pen. And I like what he's done for this team. So, first inning, awful base running by Jake Bauers. Jake Bauers, like, as much as, like, I think he deserves credit and, like, has been mostly a positive in terms of what he's provided from a power standpoint from the left side. Just between the bad defense and just, like, what kind of base running is this? Luis Robert, who's a good defender, why are you making the first out of third? You got to stay at second there, and Bauers is thrown out, flat out. And then Torres double play. So it could have been a big inning, maybe. And again, the Yankees, they tease, lately and then don't score. So don't get me wrong, it could have went wrong. But with Gleyber coming up, and I know he ended up in double play, so maybe it would have been nothing anyway. Still, inexcusable by Bauers there. And so, again, that's another thing, like the bad base running, that does fall on Boone. That definitely does. So in the second inning, Severino comes on and gets just bashed. Leadoff double by Moncada. Ground out by Vaughn, RBI single, Grandal, 2-run homer by Colas. 3-0 White Sox, just like that. Bottom of the third, a 1-out single by Robert, steals second, easily off Severino. A nice play by Oswaldo Cabrera, who was the shortstop in this game, but Oswaldo was bad offensively. Oswaldo with a nice defensive play, then Robert steals third, and then an RBI double by Moncada makes it 4-0. So about as bad as it could possibly be for Severino again. In the fourth, Yankees gets a chance. Walk by Judge, single by Gleyber. He eventually ends up at second on a wild pitch, and Stanton only gets an RBI ground out. So, Stanton, even though he homered tonight, he gets the RBI here. There was still, you still wanted more. He was up in a big spot later on and struck out. But here, Stanton, who had a 3-1 count, RBI ground out to short, no advance for Gleyber. And then McKinney flies out and kind of level flies out. So that was underwhelming. Then a leadoff walk to Grandal by Sevy, and his night is over. So Severino's final line, 2 innings, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. His ERA right now sits at 8.06. Fucking embarrassing. This has got to be it. Like I don't care what it is. First off, Randy Vasquez needs to be in that rotation, staple. Like a staple in that rotation. I don't even give a shit. And he might end up not pitching well. I don't even care, though. That's one thing. And then you figure out another spot. Severino has got to be mop up. Severino has got to have an Albert Abreu role moving forward. That's just it. So, bottom of the fifth. Middleton comes on and gets out of that. After the leadoff walk by Severino, Middleton versus former White Sox team, and Middleton had some choice words to say about the organization. I don't know why he had to say that. I didn't love that from a Yankees standpoint. I know White Sox fans were kind of happy about Middleton kind of shitting on the White Sox franchise, but you probably didn't have to say that going into the series with the White Sox, but whatever. Fifth inning with Middleton on the mound, you get a single by Trace Thompson. He's still second. And then, Gleyber, I wish that Gleyber got more in front of it. I understand it wasn't the easiest ball, but, they call an error. And Eloy Jimenez reaches on an error. Trace Thompson scores. And, for Gleyber, he needs to, again, he's very nonchalant. It was tougher than I originally thought, but still. And look, they called it an error, which does say something. This day and age, the official scores don't really give errors. So that makes it 5-1 White Sox. We go to Wandy Peralta comes on in the sixth, does a nice job. In the seventh, Jimmy Lambert really gets hit around. Stanton homers to make it 5-2, his 18th homer of the year. Then McKinney single. Then Connor Falefa single. Then Bader walk. So here's your shot. Here is your chance. Down by 3, bases loaded, no out. And the lefty Aaron Bummer comes on. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, you have Volpe and LeMahieu. We come to find out that LeMahieu's not available, so take LeMahieu out of the equation. So you had a choice of having Volpe pinch it for Cabrera or Bauers. And I don't think it was an obvious decision. It is very unfortunate the way, let's just put it this way, a very unfortunate way it turned out because Bauers' spot didn't come up in the inning. Oswaldo Cabrera, who I think is seen as a better lefty, certainly from an average standpoint. I think he's weirdly shown some more slug pop as a righty this year, but I think he's been coming up in the minors. I think he's more of a lefty, better there. But just an ugly at bat for Oswaldo, which ends up striking out looking. That's bad. And so that's where and Volpe, who's better versus lefties than righties, you kind of wish you had him in that spot. Although I kind of understand the idea of not wanting to have Bowers versus lefty. Again, I can't kill Boone there. But let's just put it this way. It did not end up working out in the Yankees' favor. And then Higashioka, an inning-ending double play. And he did it hard. He really did. So I can't kill him, but that is very, very unfortunate. And that just kills the momentum completely. Bottom of the seventh, it's a combination of Wandy Peralta and Albert Abreu to put up a scoreless inning. In the eighth, Volpe then pitch hits for Bowers. And he does walk versus Bummer. So it has you thinking, if he was up in that Cabrera spot, what does happen? And so I think you certainly could have went either way with that decision. And then Judge, Gregory Santos comes on, and he's probably the best White Sox reliever currently. Judge lines out to Elvis Andrus. It doesn't line out. It goes off the glove of Andrus, and Volpe was kind of in no man's land, so he ends up getting out on the force at second. I kind of wish that Volpe was playing it a little bit more halfway, but I can't kill him either because, if he gets thrown out at first, that would have been bad. So, again, I guess bad luck there. So it remains right around first. Now 1 out. Glaber walks, and now Stanton's the tying run, and he strikes out. Bad at bat by Stanton. I know he homered. I know he had an RBI ground out, but you're still left wanting more. And then McKitty grounds out. So that was really your last real chance. Eighth inning, it's a combination of mess between Abreu and Ramirez. I'm done with both of them. I think what happens is Vasquez gets called up in all likelihood, and Ramirez gets sent down. But I think as far as Abreu is concerned as well, I think Abreu, we can designate him for assignment at this point. You don't need to keep him around. It's just, could I see him eventually becoming a nice reliever in this league? I actually can. But yeah, there's just no need to hold on to him the way they do. But against Abreu, Moncada walks, Vaughn singles, Grandal singles, so it's bases loaded, no out. 5-2 game. Nick Ramirez comes on to face Colas. He actually gets the force out at home, but then with 1 out, what the Yankees couldn't do, Elvis Andrus, bases clearing, 3-run double, makes it 8-2, and then Tim Anderson, RBI single, makes it 9-2, and then the Yankees go down 1-2-3 in the ninth, and they lose it 9-2. Yankees dropped to 59-56. They are 1-7-3 in their last 11 series, and now they head to Miami to take on a Marlins team that's right in the thick of the National League race. As we speak right now, they sit in that final wildcard spot, but it's a crazy race. And the interesting thing with them is they were playing really, really, really badly coming out of the All-Star break, but they're coming off of 2 really big wins against the Reds. So, there will be some level of energy coming from the Marlins again. Last 10 games, you'll get the record 3-7. Last 2 games, they're 2-0. So, it's TBD for the Yankees. It might be another, Hamilton opener situation, and Vasquez, we'll see. Either way, Vasquez, I think, is likely to be kind of your main guy. And it'll be against Jesus Luzardo. This is going to be tough. Like I said, the Yankees are better versus lefties, but still, Luzardo is really good. Former Oakland A. I look at these pitching matchups, and I think the Yankees are going to have a lot of trouble scoring runs this series in a big way. So you got that in Game 1. Game 2, Nestor Cortez. And I want to talk about Cortez versus Sandy Alcantara. And Alcantara, let me see, been better lately. Been a lot better lately. Let me see his post-All-Star break. Yeah, he's definitely rounding more into form. Nothing like last year, where he was just amazing. And I think Alcantara he was either won the Cy Young or was the runner-up. I think he won the Cy Young last year. If memory serves. Or he might have, he was up there. He was awesome. So that will be tough, even though he's 4-10 with a 4.2 ERA. Don't let that fool you. Now with Cortez, it sounds like he didn't come out so great out of the last start. So I think that needs to be said because, look, he could have pitched on Friday. They're pushing back to Saturday. So he's actually pitching on a week, he's pitching on 6 days rest. Yeah, 6 days rest. So I think Nestor, again, the workload is going to be limited. Maybe it's now 70 to 75 pitches, 80 tops. So, I think with Nestor, they're really slow playing this. It's good that he's going to be starting, but you got to hold your breath a little bit there. And then Sunday, Garrett Cole versus Yuri Perez. Perez is one of the young, good rookies. And Perez is 5-4 with a 2.79 ERA. And he's got good stuff. He's going to be tough. So I think, again, Yankees, you do have Cole on the mound. You do have Cortez. Vasquez, when he's been up, has been, getting the job done. So expect a very low-scoring series in Miami. before the Yankees take on another NL East team in the Atlanta Braves, the best team in all of Major League Baseball. So again, I'm not even going to give you like, the 2 out of 3. So like, it is what it is at this point. Like, we'll see what happens. Expectations are low for me. And one last thing, as bad as 2021 felt, this is a lot worse. And, in 2021, it happens to be that around the same time of the season, maybe slightly off, but like early August, the Yankees faced it was a little bit, maybe it was like a week earlier. They faced the Marlins and the White Sox on the road around this time last year. If you remember, the Marlins series was right when they had just acquired Rizzo and Gallo. And that really did give the team like a boost. Say what you will. I mean, Rizzo had an amazing beginning with and both of them really, we know about Gallo, but really Rizzo as well. Like, it's not as if their contributions were crazy statistically. Gallo's was probably a little bit better than when from an OPS standpoint. Batting average was just abysmal and strikeouts abysmal. But both, and Rizzo, I don't think was as good as people kind of would remember it to be either. But the point was, it gave you a little bit of life and a little bit of a different look. And so that Marlins series, they swept the Marlins. And then the White Sox, who had that dispiriting Field of Dreams loss where Tim Anderson homered off of Zach Britton in the 9th inning. But then they went to Chicago and they won the 2 games. So it's the parallels are interesting. But what I come away with is that the 2021 team, they were on the ascent. They were ready to go. Even though, you look back at that was not an enjoyable team. But they really hit a nice stretch in August that got them into the playoffs. That's not happening here. And so let's see what happens in this Marlins series, right? Will it feel, because it's not feeling like it did 2 years ago. You were kind of grasping at straws, hoping for that. It's simply not happening. So, this is as much of a venting session for me as anything else. But, now they head southeast, and we'll see where things go in Miami and Atlanta. Not expecting great things, and this season continues to get worse and worse. Yankees lose 2 out of 3 to the lowly Chicago White Sox, and this season just. You wish it was September, not August. There's still 47 games to go. Yankees sit at 59 and 56. We'll see if anything gets better. I highly doubt it.